Hey everybody! We've got a surprisingly big crowd tonight for the night before spring break. Being here with y'all. For those who don't know me, as Seth said, my name's Chad. I'm one of the full-time staff with crew here at UNCC, and I know many of y'all know me, and I know most of y'all. This is my wife Christy. Some of y'all know her, some of you don't. And she's joining me tonight. We did relationship talk last February. I don't think we did one later in the spring too, like a sequel to it. And folks, you guys liked it so much that we did a sequel later in the spring, and then we decided to do it again this spring too. So if you heard it last year, some of it might be a repeat, but as you've seen on the social media, there was a way that you could submit questions, and a lot of you did. So we're going to be answering a lot of those, so a lot of it will be new. And I do want to preface it by saying some of this, there will be some scripture in here, though this isn't really necessarily a scriptural talk. It's more of our opinion on relationships based on two believers who've been Christians for a long time. And so these are our opinions on relationships from a Christian worldview, a Christian perspective. So, yeah, and we're going to start just real briefly, kind of outlining our relationship. May 1st will be our 5th anniversary. Woo! Yeah, you can. Babysitting is the best gift card that you can give us. Yeah, May 5th will be, or excuse me, May 1st will be our 5th anniversary, and in August will be 6 years since we've known each other. So we met and married very quickly. We hadn't known each other a year when we got married. Matter of fact, we moved out of the country together, married, before we knew each other for a year, which is not typical. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it, not because it was bad for us. It actually was great for us. I wouldn't typically recommend that, but we were a little atypical. I was 37 when I got married, and Christy was 32. We're 5 years difference, which is fairly old to be getting married, or fairly older. I mean, for a guy, 37 is getting pretty old, and for a female, 32 is... Nobody right. So we got set up. We had a family that we were mutually, both of us were friends with his family. I was best friends with Chris since my junior year of college. And Christy was best friends with his younger sister since 5th grade, and I'm sure we were probably both at their house at the same time at some point or another, but we never met until 6 years ago. Their parents had run into Christy at a golf tournament and said, "Hey, are you dating anybody? You want to be? Are you getting set up?" She's like, "No, yes, and no. I'm not dating anybody. I would love. You can set me up." And anyway. So we started emailing, and I think we, Facebook friended each other first, and then
I got pictures, y'all. Be honest.
Yeah. So Christy had already deleted all the pictures of herself that she didn't like and untagged. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
It's a great gift.
So we went on our first date in September. So we started talking late August when our first date met in September, and then got engaged in February and married in May. So, but after our first date, I drove. I was living in Wilmington, North Carolina. She was in Raleigh, and driving home, I called one of my close friends on the way home and said, "Hey, I think this one's a keeper." Now, I'm not going to say it was love at first sight. Like, I think sometimes people can over glamorize love at first sight, but even that the interactions of that first date, interacting with her, I saw parts of her character that I realized, I think this one's a keeper. There are things I don't know, but the things that I do know so far, this is someone that I would want to spend my life with. You want to add on any parts of that?
Yeah. It's like we started talking, and I didn't tell my girlfriends because as a girl, I do a really good job of like going 10 miles further down the road than I actually am. I'm like, okay, there's this really cute guy. Okay, so we're gonna go on this date, then we're gonna go second, third date, and we're gonna get engaged, and then we're gonna get married, and have 4 kids, and they're gonna this, you know. So I kind of wanted to protect myself. I was really trying hard to reel it in and not, I wouldn't be fully present where I was in life and not go 10 miles down the road where I wasn't. And so I didn't tell my girlfriends for probably a month. When I told them, they freaked out and like started Facebook stalking him and finding mutual friends and giving me info. But that was just something that you might be able to relate, you might not. But I had realized that about myself a couple of years before that I get ahead of myself really easily. So.
And that's actually pretty typical of females. Not that every you agree with that? Eyebrows raising on the second row.
I mean, before the guy had asked me on a date, I said my outfit. That's just like, wait a second.
I went to NC State, which is an engineering school, as UNC Charlotte is, and actually there was a lot more guys than girls there, and so all of my female friends were at Meredith College. My roommates and I, we had a whole posse of Meredith girls that we hung out with, and I learned a lot about girls from them. And one of the things that they taught me was that this is for the guys. Guys, when you're hanging out with a person, girl, not person, but you're hanging out with a girl, you're spending, and this is, time equals commitment to a female, often. Right? Okay, I'm getting something. When you spend a lot of time and dedicated time and one-on-one time and like texting, calling, bumping into them, lunch, that equals commitment to a female. And you're like, well, I haven't said anything, so why is she acting like we're dating? Well, time equals commitment. And that's what these Meredith girls taught me. And they also taught me that fellas, at the point when you think that maybe perhaps you might be a good idea to talk with her and define where you are, she's been thinking about it and talking with all her girlfriends for about 4 weeks. And whenever I've talked to other females about that, even the 4 weeks thing, they're like, oh yeah, at least 4 weeks. That they're all already ahead of you. And so guys, you can never do that too soon if you think that maybe you should. So anyway, yeah, but that, as a rule of thumb, as you're hanging out with people, and some of these questions we're kind of answering this way, but time equals commitment. So be very careful about how much time you spend with a female, unless you're very clear. And maybe you want it to go somewhere, but yeah. So some of these questions are lighter, some of them are more serious. We'll hit quite a few of them. We'll start with a lighter one. What are some good ideas to keep date night interesting, fun, spontaneous, without blowing college kid budget?
I love this question because I don't like going out and spending a lot of money on dates, personally. So, Redbox and a box of brownies was like $3.50 and delicious. Always.
And it can be a whole lot of fun. Yeah. You don't have to spend a lot of money to have a good time.
For our second date, Chad showed up at my house with all of the ingredients to make homemade chicken pot pie from scratch. So, like, that doesn't cost a lot of money. But like, we got to cook it together and have fun and eat together. So, and it was a date night. And then we got Krispy Kreme donuts for dessert. Yes. Hot now is
So cooking together can be really fun. And if you don't know how to cook, that's okay too. You could try to learn together. I mean, but do something that's fun. We're talking about relationships. So ultimately, what we're really talking about is how to find a partner, a life partner. I think that's really what we're boiling it down to. Is how do I set myself up and find someone that I want to spend the rest of my life with? The rest of your life, you're probably not going to be going on $100 dates several times a month. Probably not. It's just not going to be realistic. So you want to find a person that you enjoy spending time with, that's your best friend, or the potential to be a best friend, someone that you trust, and someone that you can enjoy spending time with no matter what you're doing. So if you can enjoy making a meal together or watching a $1.50 Redbox movie and making brownies, that's the kind of person I want to be with, right? And when you do spend money, it's I was going to say it's even better. It's not even always better. Sometimes we have less fun when we spend more money, because I think the expectations are higher when you spend a lot of money.
And sometimes it's fun to go to the Dollar Theater and talk about how gross the floor is. And, or go to Target and just browse. Like, who doesn't want to go to Target and browse? Or see what you can get at Target for under $5. Like, I don't know.
It was our first or second date. Somehow, for some reason, we ended up at Walmart, and we had so much fun hanging out at Walmart. And we spent like 20 minutes in the candle aisle smelling all the candles. The old lady ones, the ones you'd actually buy, that sort of thing. And I just remember it was a lot of fun. But Christy mentioned bowling. There's fun things to do around Charlotte. There's a lot of fun things. One of our favorite things, and we do this with our little boys sometimes, is we've gotten takeout pizza or Chick-fil-A, and we go to Charlotte Douglas Airport, and they've got a great spot at the end of the runway where there's picnic tables even, and you can watch airplanes take off and land. It's free. And so we open the back of her car, and we sit there and we eat pizza and watch airplanes land. It's a whole lot of fun.
And there's hiking at the Whitewater Center Crowders. And there's Groupon. Let's give it up for Groupon. A lot of these days are like affordable at night. I'm like, I'm not gonna pay full price for anything. I don't always pay full price at all for anything ever. But Groupon has now made that realistic. So you could try the fancy bistro something for $8. You get a $20 meal. So, what are some signs in a woman's lifestyle that reflect that she is pursuing and loves God with all her heart? It's a great question. I would say authenticity and integrity and character. Those are the first things that come to mind. But
yeah, when I think of a godly woman, or even a godly man for that matter, but I'm thinking of a godly woman, I think of someone that loves her friends and is loved by her friends, that loves God, and loves others. And so one of the important things when I was dating and when I met Christy was to see what did her friends think of her. And so the fact that she did have a handful of friends that did Facebook stalk me and then contacted, oh, he knows Betsy. Well, I'm going to call Betsy because I know Betsy really well, and I want to see what she thinks of Chad because I'm concerned for Christy. And no, I mean, what I mean is her friends cared for her so much that they did stalk me and did background checks on me because they really liked her and they cared about her, and she meant a lot to them. A lot of her, as I met her friends, they universally adored her. And she had a lot of female friends. She had some guy friends too, but that spoke a lot. And as I met some of the friends and kind of got to know some of their characters, and some of them I actually knew a few of their friends, I think a couple of them, but a godly woman, is she someone who loves others? Does she love God? Does she love others?
Well, I mean, loving God and loving others, I think, above all, those two, because we're told above all, that's what we need to do. But then, looking for things that can't be manufactured on a regular basis, the fruits of the Spirit. I mean, we can all on our own get by with love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness. We can perform to some degree with those, but those can't be consistent without the Holy Spirit.
Some of these are short, so let's just hit them. I'll read this and Christy can answer it. This guy asked me for a date, and I said yes. How should I dress for a first date? How should I generally dress for my everyday life?
Not too low, not too high. You don't want to bend over and show any cleavage. You don't want to bend over and show any cleavage. You just to be honest. And then, but you want to feel beautiful. You want to find an outfit that you think, gosh, I love this. I feel beautiful in this. You're not wearing spandex and being Catwoman from head to toe. But you don't have to wear a muumuu. And you don't have to be the missionary that wears denim. Denim smock, not cute. Wear something that you feel cute in. Be girly. Be yourself. If you don't like super girly clothes, wear what you like. Wear what you feel good in.
And if the guy doesn't like your style, then maybe he's not the guy for you.
And how do you dress in your real life? I mean, I grew up with 4 brothers, and so we kind of had, my dad taught me a lot about this growing up, and my parents, my skirts and shorts always had to be below my fingertips when I stood up. Like, that was the shortest I could go, and my tops couldn't be incredibly clingy or revealing with cleavage. There had to be some degree of modesty. Now, my parents own a boutique in Boone, so they love clothes and fashion. Like, it is a very cute, trendy boutique. So they're all about cute clothes. They're not trying to say, cover yourself from head to toe, and don't ever show off anything, and don't wear cute clothes. But they want you to do it tastefully. That's what they hope. So.
And ultimately, for guys and girls, I mean, you certainly want to be attracted to the other person, but are you wanting to marry someone who looks good in stretch pants? Or are you going to want to marry someone who you trust and who's trustworthy at 2 in the morning when there's kids screaming and you got to take care of them? Or when you're having trouble making the mortgage payment, or when you found out that one of your kids has cancer, or that your house just burned down. The last 2 happened to her parents' neighbors this past weekend. You want someone who's going to stand with you through those hard times. Life is frankly really hard. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's often really hard. We had a really hard day. I woke up sick, and I hadn't gotten any sleep the night before because I had the boys. We have 2 little boys, 2.5 and 3.5, and a couple of y'all have met them. They have a lot of energy. They're perpetual emotion. Christy didn't get any sleep last night because they were up and down all night long, and I woke up sick. And then one of them screamed all day long today, all day, in our ears. And I'm not exaggerating. And when I mean screaming, picture right now if the neighbor beside of you did like this and just started screaming at the top of their lungs all day. I mean, and they're not bad little boys. They're not bad kids. That's just life. And so when you're thinking of dating and whatnot, are you wanting to attract someone who's attracted to you because of your cleavage or because of your biceps? Or you want to attract someone that likes you for your personality and your character? Yes, the other stuff does matter. Certainly. I'm not saying it doesn't. But, you know, what are you trying to sell? You're trying to sell what you look like or who you are. This is a good one, I think. What should I do if I'm interested? They're all good ones. What should I do if I'm interested in a guy? This is from a girl. How should I let him know?
I was brought up by parents who told me from 7th grade that a relationship is nothing until the guy says it's something, and it's not my place to say anything to define it. And not that my parents are not super conservative or fundamentalists. They were protecting my heart. They thought that that if a girl begins to define the relationship at the beginning, the guy's place in the relationship erodes away. There are certain roles that are ingrained in us, and if you want a man who's a leader, let him be the leader. So if you want to let him know that you like him, be friendly, do eye contact, be available and approachable and nearby. Don't play aloof, don't play hard to get, don't be flippant. But don't set up coffee to say, I like you so much and I just want to really know where this is going. Okay, and let me clarify, there may be a time for that if y'all have been spending a whole lot of time together and he has not said anything. There might come a time when you've got to call him on it because that's not fair to you. But if you just have a crush on somebody, be available and approachable.
And you can be a little
And
flirty.
flirt,
You can
yes.
flirt. I mean, guys can do that too. You can kind of flirt a little bit. Let them know that you're interested. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But even when Christy knew that, and we never used the love word until there was a ring on her finger. We never talked about marriage until there was a ring on her finger, even though that we both knew where it was going. And So we've been dating, or we've been going out for a month or less, and at that point she knew that I was getting ready next year. Will you go with me, is what I said. And she said, yes. And when she said that, I said, well, I want you to know that I wouldn't expect you to go if we were only dating. So I didn't say we would be engaged. I didn't say we would be married because I really didn't know yet. But I told her I wouldn't expect you to go if you were only dating me. And that, you felt what?
I felt safe, and I felt protected because being a girl who could go 10 miles down the road, if he were to mention the marriage award, I would have called my mom and started buying magazines, wondering what the date was going to be, and it's going to be a spring wedding or a fall. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to get married? What's going to happen? Because he was very intentional in protecting my heart, and I don't say that lightly, he was very intentional about not saying that word. I was able to stay where I was and be fully present where we were and not go down the road in my mind. I mean, I could have gone dress shopping at that point, you say the word, okay, we're getting married. Well, what if something would have happened? What if, yeah.
And I really respect and appreciate what her parents were living in Ecuador out of the country while we were dating. So there's a point at which she was feeling like she was in love with me, and you told your parents on the phone.
My dad said, go buy some duct tape, I'll pay you back. He goes, you better put that stuff over your mouth. Do not mention that love word. That is for him to say first. Do not say it. It will freak him out. I was like, you don't even know. He was like, it is not your job to say that first. It's his. Because if I were to say it first, it would put him in this awkward position where, well, gosh, he really does like me and he might love me, but then he's got to say it back because he doesn't want to make me cry. Guys don't want to hurt our feelings, so they're going to say back whatever we want to hear to keep us from crying. So don't tell me what to say. Girls, you have a lot of power. You might not feel like it, you might not realize it, but you have a lot of power. And so if a guy likes you, and if you turn on the waterworks to get what you want, or to manipulate it, or to have him react a certain way, that's not fair. So as much as you can, I know there are certain times in the month where it's easier to cry. Honestly, we try to avoid hard conversations at times because I'm like, I'm just a little too emotional to talk about this right now. Because when I react emotionally, he is kind of backed into a corner. We can't have a discussion about anything. I don't know how I got off. Anyway, oh yeah, duct tape. I forget. So.
Duct tape. Some of you know I just finished a master's in counseling, and and part of that I did a lot of as part of getting the degree, I did a lot of marriage and premarital counseling. But through some of that and even some of my own knowledge, I would agree with Christy. I think that the women have more power in the relationship than the man does, even when the man's being the leader. Because if you have a good, strong male who's leading, he's going to be looking out for his wife and looking out for her interest anyway, if he's a good man. And so the woman has a lot of power because the man's going to want to please her and do what works for her and what's best interest. So if you're in a relationship where you feel like you need to have power grabs, it's either the guy's not a good leader, or it's maybe not a good relationship. And a power grab sometimes can be, I think you need to know that I love you. Because, inside sometimes the girl's thinking, oh, I don't want him to leave. I want to make sure that he knows this so that, But girls have a lot more power than they realize. Guys are pretty simple, typically. Some guys are smart. Is that true? Think you're pretty simple? Yeah. I really like this question. When should I consider dating? Is there some requirements to be met before I start dating someone? That's a really good question. I think that, or I don't know if this is a requirement, but it's really, really important to know who you are first and to know who you're not. And realistically, at this point in your life, a lot of times you just don't know. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just haven't had enough life experience to figure out who you are. That doesn't mean you're dumb or inexperienced. It just means you're human. But knowing who you are and who you're not, so that when you get into a relationship with someone, you often hear the word boundaries. A boundary is a kind of an invisible barrier of saying you can come this far but no further, and there can be physical boundaries, but also emotional boundaries. If you don't know who you are, how can you set up those boundaries? How can you say, no, this is not who I am, I'm not going to do that? How many of you have seen friends start dating someone and they just change? You see the friend change, like drastically. Often it's because the person didn't have boundaries, and maybe they didn't know who they were, so they begin to chameleon and be who the person that they're dating them wanted them to be, or who the person thought the other one wants them to be. And that can be a recipe for disaster, because eventually when when the fuzzies of the relationship begin to wane and wear off, and you realize, I'm not sure that I like the person I've become. That's often when problems start happening. I think we have some notes on that. So part of knowing yourself is being confident in who you are. And often at this age you might not be. That's okay. What's the hurry to get in a relationship? What's the hurry to get married? If you don't know who you are, and if you're not able to set up good boundaries, it often leaves you in a position of being kind of needy and looking for the other person to tell you who you are or define who you are. And I think that's where it gets really dangerous for you. Would you add to that?
Well, I don't know. Have y'all heard of the romantic comedy Runaway Bride with Julia Roberts? Anyone? I love that movie. When we were talking about this, the scene that came to mind is how she's engaged more times, and with each guy she likes a different kind of eggs. And at the end of the movie, it shows her like lining up all the like scrambled, hard boiled, poached, whatever, over easy. She lines up everything. She doesn't know what she likes. She's changing herself for each guy to be who they want her to be. So kind of come to, she has to figure out who she is and what she likes for herself. So that's what I'm reminded of as we talk about that. If you don't like scrambled eggs and the guy you're dating does, that's fine. Who cares? Like what you like and don't like what you don't like. I mean, you can try new things. You can learn to love new things. I learned to love sushi. That was okay. It wasn't because of the guy. Well, it was kind of because of the guy, but it's fine. I learned to love sushi.
Well, because of me, I can't stand sushi. This was funny when we were getting ready to move to doing it with crew, and one of our bosses that would be sending us there asked Christy, so have you always dreamed of...
No, I've never wanted, really. I said, no, I don't even like rice. I don't eat it at all. She was like, I was kind of hoping that we'd have somebody going who wanted to go and had a passion for anyway, and I was like, I got nothing to know.
What I appreciated about that was that was a boundary. She's like, no, I'm just being who I am. I want to go because he's going, and I do believe God's calling us. But no, I'm not going to pretend that I like something that I don't.
I'll be rice.
This is a great question for those who might already be in a relationship. How do you approach a conflict in a relationship without making anything worse or hurting someone's feelings? Passive aggressively. Exactly. There will be conflict. If there's not conflict, you've got something to be concerned about. There should be conflict. Fighting isn't unhealthy. You just want to fight well. And I want to say fight. You want to disagree well. Well, it might be fight. You want to fight well. You want to fight fair. Fighting fair means not taking cheap shots. If you know that your girlfriend has some issues with her mom in the middle of a fight, it would be really unfair to say, you're acting just like your mom. And y'all know that would be a string you could pull, and some guys might do it, some girls might do it. You're just like your dad. That's a cheap shot, and that can be really painful and hurtful. So let's say if you have a conflict, one of the things that I would teach people in premarital counseling and in marital counseling is how to communicate, and part of that is, and they would always, it's like, why does this feel so weird to you? But I'd make them face each other. And then sometimes they want to do this. I'm like, no, don't do that. You actually want to face them with your body And as you talk about the issue of the conflict, I don't know, maybe Christy's upset about the, I don't know, something we've planned or whatever. As she tells me, you want to be an active listener. You don't want to try to blurt out an answer every time she's getting ready to say something. But when she's done, say, what I hear you saying is, and then you mirror back what you thought she said. That helps you make sure that you understand it, and it helps her make sure that you understand it. And if you got it wrong, she can correct you, and then she would do the same with me.
And if I'm the one that's a problem, I say, I feel. I need to, instead of, you didn't do da-da-da-da-da. If I'm the one that's upset, then I need to say, I'm upset because of this, or I'm angry because of this.
Yeah, I statements. Not, you make me so angry. You made me so mad. It's like, I felt so angry when you did, when this action happened or when that happened. You know, you want to take ownership for your thing. They didn't make you do anything. You got angry. Or you got hurt. You hurt me so bad. No, you got hurt. I got, don't have conversations when you're tired, or you're hungry, or you're late, or one of you's got a big exam the next day, and that's when you have a big exam the next day, at 9 o'clock that night is not the time to just talk about your relationship.
And sometimes in the moment is not the time to talk about it either. If you're angry right then, it can wait. Because if you're angry right then, you might end up saying some things you might not also say.
Yeah, and we talked, so in conflict, Chrissy talked about turning on the waterworks. And both men and women can control a relationship, control a conversation with their emotions and stuff, and that's not fair either. There was a couple in premarital who, they've been dating 4 or 5 years. They were great for each other. They ought to get married, but they had really bad communication patterns. This was just standard premarital counseling that was required by the pastor marrying them, and the girl would just break out crying every time, and she would just totally lose it. And the guy was kind of quiet, and so he didn't want to hurt her. So he would begin to say less and less, because if something was important, he didn't want to hurt her, he didn't want to make her cry. So he went more and more into his shell, and the girl's a teacher. And so one day in session I said, so you have a really hard job. Teaching's a really hard job. She goes, yes, it is. It's pretty stressful. And then she goes, uh-huh. I was like, what happens at work? Because she said, I can't help it. It's the way I grew up. When I get upset, the emotions come out. I can't control the emotions. And that she said she couldn't control them. Like, what happens at work when one of these first graders start getting under your skin and start getting you upset? It must be really embarrassing when you break out crying with first graders. Oh no, that would be totally inappropriate. You just really have to contain yourself. Also, you can't control it. Well, she absolutely can control it. She doesn't do it with first graders, but she does it with her fiance like that, because she knew subconsciously that was a way to control him, and it was a great way to destroy her relationship too. So you can often control it. Any thoughts about that? Kind of going through some of these questions. There's a couple. Where are they? There's a couple on here that I think. Yeah. I think these two questions are probably asked by a lot of folks y'all's age. I'm going to say the two questions together. They're essentially the same. Biblically, what is considered going too far physically before you're married? And the other one is, what is too far physically in a relationship? I think that's often the question of folks your age. I've heard this analogy one time, and I think it really helps. If you're driving on a mountain road that doesn't have a guardrail on the side of it, are you going to drive as fast and as close to the edge of the road as you can get? Or are you going to stay more away from the edge? What would you do? Yeah. You're not going to see just how close you can get up to the edge before the car tumbles down and rolls 300 feet to your death, fiery death. That's not typically what you do. But when hormones get involved, that's exactly what you do. And for the ladies, I'll say this. Men who are in the range of 18 to 24, maybe 18 to 30, are raging hormones. They think about sex all the time. All the time. Even the good guys. They just can't help it. That's the way they're wired. And a lot of women are that way too. I know some of them. So it's not just... rolling down. So when you're in a season where you are chemically made, your chemical makeup is such that you're going to think about that a lot. Trying to see how close you can get to the edge without driving off just isn't a great idea. Because you will drive off. And I know a lot of folks that that's happened to. I'd love your input to that too.
Well, the lady that discipled me in college, she said, girl, you feel free to kiss and caress all the skin that is shown in the wintertime. That means your face and your hair and your hands sometimes, but everything else. She's like, I wear turtlenecks and snow boots. Everything's covered. She said, and you do it standing up. You can't do that laying down. So she's like, vertical and exposed skin in the wintertime when it's cold. That's fair game. That's what she told me. So I was like, oh, I guess that's pretty safe. I don't know, I'm standing up. So I think the point is, you've got to know your boundary. This isn't a sliding scale where it goes back and forth because it will slide all the way one way or the other at some point. In the heat of the moment, it's not easy to control that sliding scale. So you've got to know. And some people struggle, like, I don't know, just know what's a struggle for you, know where your boundary needs to be, and stick to it. It's going to take discipline, it's going to take willpower, it's going to take self-control, and it's going to take somebody who respects you and respects that.
When you go physical in a relationship, it's going to muddy the waters. You will no longer be objective about that person. Because the physical part will begin to take over, the chemical part will begin to take over, and you will lose your objectivity about what you think of this person with their character and who they are, who their personality. And y'all, if you haven't experienced it personally, you often know your friends sometimes like, why are they even together? She's a jerk, he's a jerk, why are they even together? Well, often it's because the physical side has been breached. And once that happens, a lot of personality stuff goes out the window. Yeah, I know they're kind of mean, and I know they're kind of mean to me, but it sure is nice to cuddle with them. It sure is. And you begin to lose objectivity. It becomes more difficult to see the person for who they really are. There'll be plenty of time for that if you marry the person. Here's a boundary too. Are you doing any, for guys, are you doing anything with the girl that you would be, do whatever with the girl that you would be comfortable with another guy doing with your daughter, your sister, or your mom? If you would be comfortable with another guy doing the same activities with your daughter or your sister or your mom, then go for it. And girls, you could think the same way. Would you want some guy, if your mom might marry your sister, would you want some other guy doing the same activities with your daughter or your sister or your mom? And I said that to a guy, it was a fraternity guy one time in another school. We were talking about this. He said, that's not fair. How's it not fair? He said, it's totally not fair. Sure it is. I think that it suddenly rearranges your priorities of what's okay. Most of us have a sense, I don't even have to really go into biblical definition. We have a general sense of morality that's sort of built into us generally. Many do, not everybody. Many do. So yeah. Gosh, everybody got quiet about that one. That was a heavy one. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Okay. This is a long question, so I'm going to kind of condense it. But it's someone who said, we've been in a long-distance relationship almost a year and a half, relationship is long-term, and planning on being married. How do you cope with the distance? They're having a really hard time realizing the relationship's real because a lot of it's on Skype, and the other person's out of state, so they don't get to see each other, and they're different colleges. And as Christy and I looked at this question, what was the word that stood out to us?
Married. As a girl reading that, I've been dating somebody for a year and a half, and there's talk of marriage, I'm already there. So it makes it real hard to have a real relationship in the real present, even if we're not in the same place or if we're on the same place, because I'm thinking, well, we're going to get married, so this needs to be like that. I've already gone down that road. So in this situation, I would say you take that word off the table, and you just start dating where you are. You're dating your boyfriend or girlfriend, you like each other a lot, maybe you love each other, and you stay there. And I tell her to ring in a date, and stay away from that word. A date, not just a ring in a date.
Because I know guys who I know someone who showed up with a ring tied around a puppy's neck to make sure that she wouldn't go somewhere, and she didn't. And they didn't even have a date. 6-8 months later, they still didn't have a date. He wasn't planning on doing it anytime soon. She was fed up and about to leave. So he finally gave her the ring with a tied around a puppy's neck, one other cute thing. Very manipulative. When you talk the marriage word and the love word, you better have a ring and a date. That is my opinion. Y'all might differ, but it's my opinion. When we got engaged on a Friday, and I think the next day we had a date.
Oh, that night?
That night we had a date.
Chad
We pulled out our calendar right then.
Chad came with a ring and a date.
Oh, we had a date beforehand.
He said, how free is that? Like, as the girl, I'm like, of course, I'm planning the wedding. But that he was serious enough to come with a ring and a date and say, like, we got engaged, it was all exciting, and he goes, how about May 1st? I was like, my brother plays basketball overseas. My parents are missionaries in Ecuador. If they can get back in the country, yes. So we called them. He's like, let's ask them.
The date was contingent on things.
Yeah.
But you got to start somewhere. So it's like, well, how about May 1st?
So, yeah. But that's freeing to, for me, I'm a planner. I like to know things. I don't like loose ends. So he came with a date, and I was like, well, great, I can start planning that. So we have a date. So
at that point, she knows you're serious. But if you're dating long distance and this couple has already talked about marriage, that's what makes it so hard. Really, if they really think it's going to happen, then one or the other one needs to move, change colleges.
And not into the other person's apartment, in my opinion. You can say, hey, my boyfriend's going to move in town. Guys, and we have a room that he could sublease for the semester, or let's find him a different apartment. And just like girls can use tears to be manipulative at times, even without knowing it, if a guy starts tossing out the marriage word without backing it up, the girl's most likely going to get led on, and you can, there's going to be a lot of power in that word, so be careful.
And no one's the same. I said earlier that many times people your age may not know what you want and all that. I know couples, thinking of Caleb and Brooke, they've been married 7 or 8 years now, I guess, and they started dating their freshman year of college, and it was obvious even to me. As obvious as it could be. It's like, oh yeah, they're made for each other, whatever that means. But it was a very mature relationship. They dated all through college, but they also had their own friends. They did things apart. They were what I would call differentiated. They didn't depend on the other one for life to work. And they got married shortly after college. No one questioned it. It was just like, oh yeah, of course they should get married. This just makes sense. They are happily married now. I was not at that point when I was a freshman in college. But some are, and Caleb was. He's just, both of them are very mature. And okay, this is a kind of a specific question, but I think, and we'll be wrapping up soon. Someone asked me to a movie and knew that I was not single. I assumed they asked as just friends, but the way they asked me sounded like a date. I'd be fine going as just friends with this person, but how do I make it clear to them without being rude that I'm not single and view them just as a friend, while also still wanting to see a movie with them?
I don't know if we are over it. My thought was, if a girl actually had to go to a movie, if he wanted to go to a movie with a girl, well, either one ask me, like, hey, I don't know, can Christy come too? Is that cool? Or can we get a group of people? Or just, is your boyfriend going to be okay if you go to a movie with another guy? Honestly, like, is that, even if y'all are friends? I don't know. And maybe he's like a brother, is your boyfriend's totally okay with it, and that's a certain circumstance, I don't know. But I would kind of answer it in a way like, yeah, a movie sounds fun. Let's get a group of people and go. My boyfriend's been wanting to see this, or my girlfriend's been wanting to see this. You don't want to shut people down, you don't want to be mean, and I think you can do it without being snarky. But that was my first thought. I don't know.
No, I think that's great. We'll start. We love talking about this stuff. We can talk all night, but I know we realize it's getting later. I want to touch on one passage of scripture, and I think it relates to a lot of what we're talking about here. It's familiar to many people. It's 1 Corinthians 13. It's the passage on love, and I'm going to read it. And before this passage, Paul is talking about all these spiritual gifts, and they're kind of arguing which gifts are greater than the other ones. And then he gets to this, and he says the greatest spiritual gift is that of love. And that is the greatest one. And then he talks about it, and I'm going to kind of go and give you the punchline here. As I read this, you're not going to hear a lot of feeling stuff about what Paul says love is. You're going to hear that love is talked about as a choice. Love is a feeling, it can be a feeling, but primarily it's a choice. Sometimes I feel love towards God, and I want to obey Him because I just feel love towards Him. Often I really don't. But I obey Him because I choose to out of love, not because I feel like it. So let me read this. If I speak in the tongues, so he's talking about different gifts here before he gets. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels but have not love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames but have not love, I gain nothing. And here's what he says love is. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Ouch. It's starting to get painful reading these, isn't it? Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And he talks about it a little bit more, but I'm going to stop there. What I get from this is that love is a choice. And when you're thinking of relationships, you want to saddle yourself up with someone that's going to be easy to choose to love for a lifetime. Because there will be days that you might not like each other, but you'll still choose to love each other. And there will be days that you don't have time to feel love towards them because somebody just threw up all over you and somebody else is crying and neither one of them have gotten sleep in a couple of days. You don't have time to feel it. But you want to choose someone, you want to make a real calculated decision. And there's emotion there too, but like, yeah, could I see myself loving this person for the rest of my life, choosing to? that's what you want to choose. Christy was pretty when we got met, when we first met, and when we got married. She's become much more beautiful since then. I think physically she's become prettier, but her beauty goes far beyond that because I see how she treats our children when she's furious at them. And there are times when you're just furious. When you leave the hospital, that infant, they will hand you this pamphlet and maybe a DVD on how not to shake your baby. And you're thinking, I don't need this. And then like a week later, you're like, where's that DVD? And you think I'm joking, but you'll remember this a few years later and you're like, oh, he was exactly right, because I'm going to kill that baby. But as I've seen her on those days where I know she is furious, but she practices great restraint in not killing them. And I wouldn't blame her if she did some days. We love them. Then I'm like, wow, she's awesome. She's so awesome. I'm glad that she's the one that takes care of them. I'm glad that she's the one that they scream for in the middle of the night. My meaning is, these are my little boys who I'm crazy about, and I chose someone who I trust with them, and I never have to wonder, oh, what will she do to them, or no, hey, you think I'm kidding, but Child Protective Services is there for a reason. And I never have to worry about that with her. I never have to worry. I wonder if they'll feel loved. I wonder if they'll feel, our 3.5-year-old the other day said, Mommy told me I'm important. I was like, you are, and she's right. That's who I chose, and that's who I pray that you'll get a chance to choose one day. And so, hey, we're available to ask questions anytime. We love talking about this stuff. And Christy actually won. Yeah, you can find her on Facebook. You can email her, christy.mcgee@cru.org. I'm chad.mcgee@cru.org. We're more than happy to answer questions.
And no question is off limits.
Yeah.
Nothing is off limits.
And we'll say too, relationships are messy. Our engagement period was awful. It was like, it wasn't, not the whole, well, actually, the engagement it was awful. And it wasn't because of who she was, but really because of my own issues of trying to move into marriage. And people are very complicated. It's one of the reasons I became a counselor, to help try to understand people. But it wasn't about, it was awful because it was a hard transition for me after being single for so long to move into the thought of being married. And it was just not pretty. And Christy, we at that point we began hearing from a lot of our contemporary friends that like, hey, was your engagement hard? Is your engagement hard? Because ours was too. And marriage is great. Engagement was, so in other words, relationships are messy. They don't have to be pretty to be good.
And they're not what Hollywood tells you.
No, they are not.
Moments.
They're better.
You will have moments of the fluff and the romance, but how Scripture and how God defines love is not how Hollywood does. And so that's where you will have the feelings, but also you have other feelings like anger and frustration and sadness and you have other feelings, not just love. And so that's where the choice. And when you enter into marriage, it's a covenant love. It's a lifetime vow, a covenant that you're not saying, I choose to be fluffy and mushy and butterflies and rainbows and butterfly kisses forever. You're saying, I choose to walk through this with you, and I'm choosing to be patient as best I can and kind when I don't want to. Not easily angered. Keep no record of wrong.
Hollywood and our culture cheapens it. It's a facade. The kind of love that God talks about and the covenant that He asks us to make with our mate is much, much deeper. Hollywood says that if it's good and feels good, then it's good. And if it feels good, it's good. But God says, no, I can redeem things. I can make things better and deeper than just what it looks like. Anyway, we've gone long. Thanks for y'all's attention. It's really fun. Email us or talk to us if you have other questions. Let me pray for y'all as we leave, and then I get the fans. Yeah. And I'll invite them to come up as I pray. Lord, I pray for my friends in this room as they are on the threshold of finding a mate, looking for a mate, wanting a mate. And I know that that's scary and confusing and thrilling all at the same time. God, I pray that they would develop relationships with you and deepen those relationships with you before they find their mates. Lord, would you teach them what it's like to love God as you love them and as they learn to love you? And Lord, would you help them make wise choices and great choices that will make for great and fun mates? And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.